Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles. I married Danielle 5 years ago after 2 years of dating. From the beginning, there was something magnetic about her. Something that pulled me in like a current. I couldn't fight even if I wanted to. She was intense, passionate, impossibly brilliant, and sometimes unpredictable. At first I thought that was just part of her charm. It was only after a year into our marriage that we found out she had bipolar disorder. I still remember sitting in Dr. Sharon Patel's office. When we heard the diagnosis, Danielle squeezed my hand so tight my fingers went numb. I didn't let go. Dr. Sharon Patel was calm, professional. With the right medication and support system, many people with bipolar disorder go on to live stable, fulfilling lives. Danielle's voice was quiet, almost hollow. So this explains everything. Some things, yes, the doctor said gently, and it gives us a place to start. She was prescribed mood stabilizers, and for a while everything leveled out. We learned routines, triggers red flags. We journaled, went to therapy, we even bought one of those color-coded pill organizers, like we were preparing for a marathon of stability. Then we found out she was pregnant. I can still hear her laughter when she saw the second line on the test. It was 327. In me, I remember because she woke me up by jumping on the bed, waving the test in my face. "We're having a baby. Vincent, we're having a baby." I pulled her close, half asleep, but already wide awake with something deeper. Joy, fear, wonder. We told our families. Over dinner the next evening, her parents Thomas and Angela cried. My mom Lorraine clasped her hands and said, "Thank the Lord, I've been praying for this." My younger brother Jeremy teased, "You're going to be a dad, Vin. Hope you're ready to trade sleep for spit up." Everyone was over the moon. There were baby shower plans, group texts full of name suggestions, and late-night calls from Angela fussing. Over nursery colors, Danielle floated through it all with a kind of glowing, erratic grace. Some days, she was nesting like a squirrel on espresso, organizing drawers that didn't exist yet. Other days, she was curled up on the couch, staring out the window for hours. We talked to Dr. Sharon Patel and her OBGYN. Some medications were adjusted, others removed. It was a balancing act between keeping Danielle stable and protecting the baby. She tried. God, she tried. I watched her fight her own mind, every day for the sake of that tiny life growing inside her. And when the contractions started 3 weeks before her due date, she was calm. Eerily calm. "It's time," she said softly, her hand resting over her stomach. We rushed to St. Mary's Medical Center, where the nurses welcomed us with bright smiles and efficient hands. Danielle was in pain, but she held on to me through every wave, teeth clenched, sweat on her brow. She didn't scream, not once, just gripped my hand and whispered, "Stay with me, Vincent. Please, I'm not going anywhere, I promised." Angela and Lorraine waited outside. Jeremy paced the hallway like an anxious uncle in training. Thomas prayed silently in the corner of the waiting room. Hours passed in a blur of beeping machines, soft moans, whispered reassurances, and then everything changed. The moment the baby was born, I felt the room tilt. I heard the nurse say something. Maybe congratulations, but her voice sounded far away, like it was coming through a tunnel. All I could do was stare. The baby was beautiful. Tiny, soft, perfect. And, unmistakably mixed, I'm white. Danielle's white. The child in front of me was not. My heart almost stopped. The nurse's smile faltered as she caught my expression. She looked from the baby to me, then back again, and her eyes widened, just a bit. Just enough to say she knew. Then she gave me that look. Pity, confusion, a touch of fear. I took a step back. "You want to hold her?" she asked, gently, trying to make it normal. I shook my head. No, I didn't shout, I didn't cry. I just turned around and walked out of that room, like a man in a trance. The hallway was quiet, sterile. I could hear my shoes on the tile. Every step felt heavier than the last. I saw my mother Lorraine, sitting with her arms crossed, eyes fixed on the delivery room doors. When she saw me, she stood. "Is everything okay?" she asked, scanning my face. I opened my mouth, but the words came out like lead. "The baby is mixed." She blinked. "What, the baby is not mine?" I said flatly. My mother's face hardened instantly. She didn't even flinch. "Call the lawyer," she said. "Father divorce." Then she turned slowly toward Angela, who had just stood up, concern all over her face. "Lorraine's voice cut through the air like a knife. I had more expectations from your daughter. She turned out to be a bitch." Angela gasped, her hand going to her chest. "Lorraine, please." That's when the nurse came out, still holding the clipboard. "I need the father's name for the birth certificate," she said, cautious, like she already sensed the fire. I stared at her, jaw clenched. Then I said it, sharp and bitter. "Ask that I'm not the father, so it's not my baby." And Angela stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Vincent, listen to me. Please, let's not do this here." I raised my hand, palm out firm. "Save it. The more you speak today, the more damage you'll cause. Go to your daughter and find the father of the child." I paused, my voice low but steady. "I am out." That very same day, before the hospital's fluorescent lights even dimmed in my memory, my mother had already made the call. Lorraine doesn't play games, never has. By noon, we were sitting across from a sharp-suited lawyer named Malcolm Reed, a guy my uncle used during his own messy divorce years ago. The man had eyes like cold steel and a voice like a closing door. "I want everything off the table," my mother told him before I even opened my mouth. "No alimony, no support, no settlement. We go for full dissolution, fraud, infidelity." Malcolm nodded once. "Understood." It should have felt like a step forward, but all I felt was rage, simmering just beneath the skin, cold and slow like poison. There was no relief, just the beginning of the storm. By the next morning, Danielle's family began to reach out. First, a text from Angela. "Vincent, please, let's talk. This isn't what you think." Then Thomas left a voicemail. His voice was like he'd been crying. "I know you're hurt, son, but don't do anything drastic. Families work through these things." I didn't even reply. I didn't know them a single breath. Then the phone rang. Danielle. I let it ring. Then it rang again and again. I finally answered on the third try. Not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I wanted to end it. "Vince," she breathed, "please don't do this. Don't shut me out. I know you're angry, but we can fix this." I hung up without a word. Seconds later, a voicemail pinged in. "Vince, why are you being so heartless? It's your baby. Look at him. He looks like you when you were a baby. I didn't cheat. I swear things just got complicated. Please let me come home. The baby wants to meet his father." The audacity. The baby wants to meet his father. That baby wasn't mine. That baby had someone else's blood, someone else's eyes, someone else's everything, and she knew it. She knew it before she screamed through contractions. She knew it when she said, "Stay with me." And she knew it when she looked at me and let me believe that child was mine. My family was completely in my corner. No questions asked, no second guessing. Even my Aunt Marianne, who usually plays devil's advocate at every family dinner, said, "You did the right thing. God knows what else she lied about." But what hurt the most was explaining it to my friends, at least the real ones. A few of them called after seeing Danielle post on social media pictures of her holding the baby, captions like "He left us, but we're strong, we're our little family, even when Daddy won't come home." Ryan, one of my oldest friends, called me right after. "Dude," he said, "what's going on?" Danielle saying, "You abandoned her and the baby." I almost laughed. You want the truth, of course. So I told him everything from the delivery room to the nurse's expression to the undeniable sight of that baby in the bassinet, so clearly not mine. I could hear the silence on the other end of the line. Then Jesus, "I'm so sorry, man. That's messed up. I know she's lying to everyone. Yeah, and I'm done playing nice." Ryan didn't say another word. He just texted back. 5 minutes later. Then Jamie, then Priya, then Lucas. One by one, they reached out. One by one, they heard the truth. And one by one, they knew the truth. She got served exactly a week after the hospital. I imagine her reaction the moment she opened that envelope, shock, maybe fear, or that desperate panic when you realize the lies have finally caught up. But what I didn't expect was a call that same evening from an unknown number. I picked it up out of instinct. "Vincent, you coward," she screamed before I could even say hello. "How dare you serve me? Divorce papers like I'm some piece of trash." Her voice cracked with rage. "You think you can just walk away from your own son? He looks like you, Vincent. You bastard." I held the phone away from my ear. My thumb hovered over the red button, but I didn't hang up. Not because I cared. Because I wanted her to hear my silence. She hurled a string of insults. "Liar, cheater, heartless prick, soulless bastard." And then, just like that, her voice began to crumble under the weight of her own chaos. The screaming turned into sobbing, desperate, ragged. When it went quiet, I said calmly, "Talk to my lawyer and don't call again." Yeah, I ended the call. And then I waited. When our court date finally came, I was ready, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't anxious. You never walk into a courtroom completely at peace, even when truth is on your side. Danielle walked in dressed in a modest blue dress, her hair pulled back neatly. Baby in her arms. From a distance, she looked like any other mother trying to fight for her family. That was the most dangerous part. I sat beside Malcolm, my lawyer, watching the opposing counsel shuffle papers like he was about to perform a magic trick with nothing up his sleeve. Then the opening argument came. Danielle's lawyer stood and said, "Your Honor, my client maintains that this child is Mr. Vincent Dweet's biological son. She asserts that he has abandoned his responsibilities as a father, causing great emotional harm to both her and the child." The judge, an older man with a tired face and sharp eyes, leaned forward. He looked at the baby, then at me, then back at Danielle's lawyer. He didn't say anything for a moment, just studied the contrast between the child's complexion and mine. Then, he said slowly, "He doesn't appear to be the father, but appearances can be deceiving." "Mr. Ditt," Malcolm stood. "Your Honor, there's no remedy for delusion, only for deception. We're asking for a court-ordered paternity test. Let's stop wasting time." The judge exhaled, nodding. "A DNA test, then I suppose that will put the question to rest once and for all." I glanced at Danielle. Her face twisted first with disbelief, then something closer to fear. She stood gripping the baby tighter. "This is ridiculous," she said. "He's lying. You're all against me. This judge he's in collusion with." "My husband, Mrs. Ditt," the judge said sternly. "I suggest you control your accusations, unless you have evidence." Danielle's lawyer stood abruptly flustered and handed the judge a piece of paper. I couldn't see what was written, but the judge read it carefully, lips tightening slightly. He glanced up at the courtroom. It was only later, after everything that I found out, what that paper said. It told the court that Danielle had bipolar disorder. 2 weeks later, we were back in court. The same room, the same judge, the same silence just before the storm. I sat still, hands clasped in my lap, eyes focused on nothing but the seal on the front wall. Malcolm leaned in slightly and whispered, "You ready?" I gave him a small nod. I wasn't sure if I was ready for vindication or just ready for it all to be over. Maybe both. The judge opened the folder. His face gave nothing away, not even a twitch of the mouth. He cleared his throat. "The results are in from the paternity test." He began glancing around the courtroom. "Vincent Ditt is not the biological father." The words echoed in the air. Sharp, cold, final. Danielle shot up like someone had set her on fire. "No!" she shrieked. "No! That's wrong, this is fixed, he paid someone." She was shaking, nearly dropping the baby, her lawyer. Mr. Carter stood and quickly tried to settle her down, gesturing for someone to come take the child. The judge slammed his gavel once, not angrily, just enough to remind everyone who owned the silence. "Mr. Carter," he said flatly, "control your client." Carter nodded, embarrassed. "Yes, Your Honor." Danielle was still muttering, still crying, but now it was more under her breath. I kept my eyes forward. Then came the next stage, the divorce. The judge turned a page and said, "Now that paternity has been resolved, we'll proceed with the matter of the dissolution of the marriage." Danielle's lawyer stood again. "Your Honor, given my client's diagnosed condition bipolar disorder, we request that the court consider mandatory counseling before finalizing the divorce. My client's mental health may have contributed to the infidelity in question." Malcolm stood up slowly. "Your Honor, we strongly object. We have complete documentation of Mrs. Diet's diagnosis, treatment plan, medication, adherence, and therapy. She was functional, aware, and not under any delusional state during the time of the affair. We also have a witness who can clarify this point, Dr. Sharon Patel, her psychiatrist." The judge nodded. "Very well, proceed." Dr. Patel took the stand. She was calm, composed, with a voice like tempered steel. Malcolm stepped forward. "Dr. Patel, based on your treatment and history with the patient, would you say that bipolar disorder caused her to cheat on her husband?" Dr. Patel didn't even hesitate. "No, cheating is a choice, not a symptom of bipolar disorder." Danielle flinched but said nothing. Malcolm nodded. "But could her condition have played any role?" Dr. Patel exhaled. "Her condition can influence impulse control. It can put someone in emotionally volatile or manic states where they are more prone to risk-taking or poor judgment. But to be clear, it doesn't make someone cheat. It may put them in a position where they are incapable of making a wise choice." I sat perfectly still as Dr. Patel adjusted the microphone in front of her. The courtroom had fallen silent again. You could hear every breath, every cough from the back row. Danielle was now sitting rigidly, arms crossed, jaw clenched tight. The baby was no longer with her. Someone had taken him out, probably one of Angela's sisters. Not that it mattered anymore. Malcolm stepped forward. "Dr. Patel," he said, his voice calm, precise. "You mentioned that bipolar disorder may create situations where a patient has impaired judgment. Could you tell the court more about that?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, bipolar disorder, especially during manic episodes, it can affect decision-making. It may lead to impulsive behavior, but these episodes are generally short-lived and distinct. Most patients, when under proper medication, maintain baseline stability." Malcolm nodded. "And was Mrs. Dwight under medication during the time she conceived the child?" "Yes." Dr. Patel confirmed, her tone unwavering. "She was regularly attending sessions. Her prescriptions were filled, and she was by all records mentally stable." He paced once carefully. "Is there a chance that her condition flared up unexpectedly, something beyond her control?" Dr. Patel considered this. "It can happen. No treatment is foolproof. Medications are meant to regulate the condition, to minimize episodes, not eliminate them. So yes, it's medically possible for a breakthrough episode to occur." But Malcolm said, leaning forward, "Is it medically plausible that such a breakthrough would result in a sustained romantic or sexual affair over months or years?" She looked at Danielle, then back to the judge. "No, bipolar disorder may cause a momentary lapse in judgment, a one-time impulsive act, but any long-term affair that suggests sustained deception, planning, emotional continuity, that's not caused by mental illness. That's a choice." I caught Danielle shifting in her seat, eyes darting to Carter, her lawyer, who didn't move. Malcolm turned slightly to the judge. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to submit additional evidence." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Malcolm turned toward the clerk and handed over a neatly organized file. "Over the past 2 weeks, we've conducted a thorough investigation into Mrs. Dwight's communications and movements. Our client discovered that she had been in regular contact with a man named Albert Jones." Danielle visibly flinched at the name. We have collected video surveillance from 3 separate hotel check-ins with Mr. Jones captured over the past 2 years. Alongside that, there are numerous CCTV images of the two, meeting in various parking lots around the city. These were not fleeting moments. These were consistent, repeated encounters. He paused to let that sink in. "Your Honor," he said, straightening. "We also suspect Mr. Jones may be the biological father of the child. But more importantly, we present this to show what Dr. Patel has already made clear. A bipolar diagnosis does not account for sustained secretive long-term behavior. This was not an impulsive episode. This was a pattern, a deliberate choice, and such a choice is not caused." He looked over at Danielle, whose face had turned to stone by any disorder. 2 days after court, I was sitting in my living room with the blinds halfway drawn, just trying to catch my breath for the first time in weeks. The silence was heavy, but I preferred it over the chaos that had become my life lately. I was halfway through a glass of water when I heard pounding on the front door, followed by screaming, Vince, open this damn door! I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach. I looked through the peephole and there she was, Danielle Hare, wild eyes, frantic, clutching the baby against her chest with one hand while pounding the door with the other. "I need to talk to you. You can't do this. You can't leave us like this," she shouted. I didn't open the door. I took a step back, hand already reaching for my phone. She suddenly placed the baby down right on the doormat and backed away, arms flailing. "He's your son. Look at him. You're just a coward. A selfish coward." I couldn't listen anymore. I called the cops, 911. "What's your emergency?" "My ex-wife is outside my home screaming, disturbing the peace, and she just left a baby at my doorstep." "Is the child safe at the moment?" "Yes, but she's clearly unstable. I need help fast." Within minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up. Blue and red lights lit up the driveway. Danielle, upon seeing them, screamed something unintelligible and bolted down the street, nearly tripping over herself as she ran. One officer picked up the baby, who was now crying uncontrollably, and the other chased after her. She didn't get far. I watched everything from the living room window, feeling numb, horrified, and exhausted all at once. Later that night, the police informed me she'd been arrested for public disturbance and endangerment of a minor. When I asked about the baby, they said he was being turned over to her parents, Angela and Thomas. The next morning, I got a knock on the door again, but this time it was calm, hesitant. It was Angela and Thomas. Thomas looked like he hadn't slept in days. Angela's eyes were puffy and she clutched a folded blanket. In her hands, Vincent Thomas started, "Can we please just talk?" I sighed, but I stepped aside and let them in. I wasn't cruel. I just didn't want to hear more lies. They sat across from me in the living room. Angela stared down at the floor. Thomas cleared his throat. She stopped taking her meds. "Vince, we didn't know. She was hiding it. We just thought she was tired, stressed." After the court stuff, she spiraled. "She left a baby outside my door." "Thomas," I said coldly, "that's not stress. That's dangerous. I know." "That's why she's being evaluated now. They've taken her into a facility for psychiatric observation," he said, pausing like the words physically hurt to say, "She's under observation in a facility." Angela looked up at me with red, weary eyes. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "Vincent, I know everything looks bad right now. I know she's done things that are hard to forgive, but please think about giving her a second chance. She's sick. She wasn't in her right mind." Thomas nodded slowly, beside her, trying to appear calm but clearly desperate. "She needs you, and the baby. The baby didn't ask for any of this." I folded my arms across my chest, jaw clenched so tight it ached. "You're seriously asking me to take back the woman who cheated on me for 2 years, lied to me, and tried to pin someone else's baby on me?" Angela winced, but Thomas pressed on. "She's not well, Vincent. She stopped her medication." "That wasn't Danielle," I interrupted. No, don't tell me it wasn't her. She was very much herself when she was sneaking around hotel rooms with Albert. That wasn't one mistake. That was 2 years of lies. You want me to just forget that? Because she had an episode after the fact? Angela's lip quivered. She's still your wife. Not for long, I said coldly. The papers are in, and the DNA results are crystal clear. I am not the father of that child. You expect me to raise someone else's kid. Because your daughter spiraled? Angela tried one last plate. She needs a stable home. Maybe with the right support. I stood up, voice firm, but low. Stop. Just stop. You're her parents, be there for her, but don't come here and ask me to destroy my life to fix hers. I gave her my trust, my loyalty, and she spat on it. That bridge is gone. Thomas looked like he wanted to say something more, but I raised a hand. I want you to leave, I said, and please don't come back with more. Please or guilt, I've made my choice. And if you care about Danielle, get her the help she actually needs, not a fake fairy tale reunion. They sat for a second longer, as if hoping I'd change my mind right then and there. But I didn't. Angela finally stood up, tears streaming down her face, and Thomas followed. Neither said another word. As I walked them to the door, I closed it behind them, slowly let out a long breath, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt the silence again, heavy but peaceful. I had drawn the line. The divorce went through quicker than I expected. After everything, Danielle's outbursts, the DNA test, the evidence of her long-term affair, there wasn't much room left for debate. The judge reviewed the situation, nodded grimly, and made his decision. I was ordered to pay alimony for 5 years. That part stung, sure, but there was no child support. The judge made it clear Danielle would need to establish paternity to claim anything for the baby. She hadn't done that, and from the look on her face, she hadn't expected things to turn out like this. Then came the outburst. Danielle stood up so fast her chair skidded across the courtroom floor. "You homewrecker!" she screamed, eyes burning as she pointed at the judge. "You're ruining everything, you're working with him!" Security moved fast, but not fast enough to stop her from lunging. At the bench, the judge calmly leaned back as the officers caught her mid-stride, pinning her arms behind her back. She was handcuffed, still screaming words that didn't make sense, some of them not even coherent. Everyone was stunned. Her lawyer stood, frozen, horrified. The judge looked over his glasses and simply said, "Mrs. Ditt is to be remanded for psychiatric evaluation." And just like that, she was taken away again. They admitted her into a facility. 6 months passed with barely a whisper from her side. No calls, no messages, just silence. And I needed that silence like a man needs air after drowning. I had started seeing someone new, Natalie. She was calm, kind. Gentle, in a way I had forgotten. Existed. We met at a mutual friend's art gallery opening, and our first conversation had nothing to do with trauma or heartbreak. We talked about colors travel and the way people hold wine glasses at parties. It felt simple and safe. We took it slow. For the first time in what felt like years, I was genuinely happy until Angela called. Her name flashed on my phone screen one evening while Natalie and I were out. Walking near the waterfront, I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Vincent," she said. Her voice, shaky, rushed. "It's Danielle. Something's happened." "All right." Her tone struck ice through my veins. "What happened?" I asked. Stopping dead in my tracks, Angela didn't answer right away. "Please," she whispered. "Can you come?" I didn't even hesitate this time. "I'm not coming to see her, Angela," I said flatly. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, shaky and shallow. "Vincent, she's not at home," Angela said. Her voice broke. "She came back from the facility a few days ago. We thought she was doing better, but this morning we can't find her. And she took her father's Glock." My heart dropped. It felt like the air was sucked right out of the room. "Wait, what? What do you mean?" She took his gun, I asked, gripping my phone tighter. We don't know where she is? Angela continued, voice cracking. Now I closed my eyes, trying to calm the pounding in my chest. Is the baby okay? The baby is home with me, but Vincent, we're scared. We're terrified. Call the cops right now, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Angela, this is serious. You have to report this. I don't know what they'll do, she whispered. What if they hurt her? What if she gets hurt? Angela, I snapped sharper than I meant to. Your hesitation might cause something irreversible. This isn't about pride or shame. Call the cops immediately. She went silent. Then the line disconnected. I didn't wait. I dialed 911. They responded fast, too fast. Honestly, within 10 minutes, 2 officers were knocking on my door, a man and a woman, both in uniform, both serious-faced. Mr. Ditt, the male officer asked, "We received your call. Can we come in?" I nodded and stepped aside. They entered, eyes scanning the apartment like they were already expecting someone to pop out from a corner. I told them everything. The call from Angela, the missing gun, Danielle's condition. Every word felt surreal coming out of my mouth. The female officer scribbled notes while the male cop kept his eyes on me. "Do you have any reason to believe Danielle might try to come here?" he asked. I hesitated. "Yes, if she's unstable, she might. Audio, she's shown up before." The officer nodded. "All right, you need to leave right now. Go somewhere she doesn't know. A hotel, a friend's place, whatever you've got." I blinked. "You're serious?" "Very," the female cop said, looking up from her pad. "She's armed. She may not be thinking clearly. We're going to escort you to a safe location." I swallowed hard and nodded. "Okay, I'll pack a bag." The male officer stood by the door while I gathered a few clothes, my laptop, and important documents into a duffel. Natalie's face flashed in my mind. I shot her a quick text. "Something happened. Can't explain yet. Going somewhere safe. I'll call when I can." Once I was ready, the officers flanked me as we walked out of my building. The officers flanked me on either side as we stepped out of my building. I was holding my duffel close, moving quickly but scanning every corner, every shadow. My gut was twisted with a feeling I couldn't shake off. Then I saw her. A car I didn't recognize screeched to a halt down the street. Danielle stepped out. Her clothes were soaked in blood. Red smeared her shirt, her jeans, her arms, even her face. "Jesus Christ," I whispered, frozen in my tracks. Both officers immediately drew their weapons. "Drop the weapon and get on the ground now," the male cop barked, voice like thunder. Danielle's eyes were wild, completely gone. She was laughing, a hollow, broken, maniacal sound. She raised her arm, and in it, a gun I couldn't move. It was like watching a nightmare unfold in slow motion. Then came the deafening bursts, gunshots, 4 or 5 in a split-second blur. Danielle's body jerked once, twice, and then she collapsed to the ground. "Suspect down, repeat." "Suspect down!" The officer shouted into his radio, kneeling down, guns still aimed. The other officer turned to me. "Get back inside right now." I didn't argue. I couldn't speak. I rushed back into my apartment as sirens screamed in the distance. I dropped my bag by the door and stood there, my hands trembling, the echo of that laugh still ringing in my ears. 2 days passed like a fog. I didn't leave the apartment. I barely ate. I ignored calls, messages, until I saw Angela's name flashing on my screen. Something in me knew I had to pick up. "Hello," I answered, my voice rough. "Vincent." Angela's voice was quiet, solemn. "I saw what happened. The police told me everything, but I don't understand. Why did she—" I paused. "Why did she show up like that, Angela?" Exhaled slowly. "When Danielle came home from the facility, we thought she was doing better. At first she was quiet. Then she started acting strange, especially around the baby. She wouldn't hold him, wouldn't look at him. She stayed in her room most of the time, just staring." "Did you know she had the gun?" "No. Angela said softly. We didn't realize. It was missing until it was too late. She took it the night before and left the house before we were even awake. I closed my eyes. What the hell happened? She went to Albert. Angela whispered, Vincent, she shot him 3 times. He's dead. My breath caught. What, she killed him? She repeated. The police told me. Then she came for you. That was always the plan. She blamed you both. She didn't want to live after that. Silence filled the space between us. She said goodbye before she left. I didn't know what it meant. I wish I had. Maybe I could have stopped her. I sat down slowly on the edge of my bed. Is the baby okay? Yes, we're taking care of him. He's safe. I nodded even, and though she couldn't see it. I hope you find peace, Vincent, Angela said gently. She was lost a long time ago. I'm sorry it had to end this way. I really am. Thank you, I said, for telling me. There was another pause. Then her voice came through soft and sincere. I wish you well. Yeah, I said. You too. After we hung up, I just sat there, phone still in my hand, staring at nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I just sat in the silence as everything slowly settled into place, like ashes after a fire. The next day, I called my parents. They listened quietly as I explained what happened, what Angela had told me. I could hear my mother gasp, hear my father's quiet anger simmer beneath his breath. Later that evening, they called Danielle's parents. I didn't ask what was said, only that they offered condolences, said something kind on my behalf. That was enough. I didn't attend the funeral. I didn't ask where or when it was. I didn't want to know. That part of my life was gone, buried long, before Danielle ever was. I knew some would judge me for it, but I also knew they hadn't lived through what I had. I didn't know anyone. A performance of grief and the baby. I never met him, not once, through it all. Natalie stayed. She was a quiet strength. In the storm, she never pushed, never asked too much. She was just there, holding me when the nights were too long, distracting me when the silence grew too loud. She never made me explain myself, not once. She just loved me, and I loved her for it. 1 year later, I married her. We kept it small, just our closest people, a gentle breeze and the sound of waves in the background. Simple, honest, no chaos, no ghosts, just peace. As we stood there hand in hand, I felt like I was finally stepping out of the wreckage. I was finally choosing me, my life, my peace, and someone who saw me for who I was, not what I'd endured. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.